The morning sun painted the tarmac in gold as Flight 782 prepared for takeoff. Passengers shuffled into their seats, some sleepy, others smiling, as the engines rumbled to life. The air inside was filled with the faint scent of coffee, soft chatter, and the rustle of seat belts clicking. To everyone on board, it was just another routine flight from Lisbon to New York. But one passenger, a woman named Clara Ramirez, sat quietly by the window in row 14, her eyes scanning the aisle with subtle precision. She looked like any other traveler, jeans, a beige jacket, a worn paperback in hand. Yet behind her calm eyes was a life she had buried long ago, a life she hoped would never resurface. The captain's voice echoed over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're cleared for takeoff." The plane lifted smoothly, slicing through the morning light. For a while, everything felt peaceful. Laughs from a family in the back, the clinking of cups, the endless blue sky outside. Then, 2 hours into the flight, a harsh voice broke the calm. "Everyone down. Don't move." Gasps erupted. A man stood in the aisle holding a weapon, his face masked by a scarf. 3 others followed, shouting commands in different tongues. Chaos filled the cabin, screams, cries, trembling hands. But in the middle of it all, Clara stayed completely still, her expression unreadable. The woman with the secret had just entered a nightmare that only she could end. The hijackers moved fast, barking orders at the terrified passengers. One grabbed a flight attendant by the arm, forcing her to kneel. Another stormed toward the cockpit, pounding on a reinforced door. The captain's voice crackled through the speaker, steady but strained, asking everyone to remain calm. But calm was the last thing anyone could feel, except Clara. She sat upright, eyes locked on the attackers, studying every movement. Years ago, she had worked as a crisis negotiator before leaving the job behind after a mission that nearly cost her life. She had sworn never to return to that world, but instincts never die. The leader shouted, "No one moves, or someone gets hurt." His hands trembled slightly, the gun wavering. Clara noticed it immediately. He wasn't as confident as he wanted everyone to believe. Fear lived in his eyes. She glanced at the passengers nearby. An elderly couple whispering prayers, a boy clutching his toy plane, a flight attendant silently weeping. Clara knew panic would only feed the hijackers' power. Her training whispered in her mind, control the atmosphere, control the outcome. She took a slow breath, regulating her heartbeat, and lowered her gaze just enough to avoid suspicion. If she was going to stop this, she had to understand them first. Their fear, their desperation, their plan. The chaos was loud, but inside her mind, there was nothing but focus. Hours passed, tension thick enough to choke on. The hijackers demanded a change in route and refueling rights, their voices sharp with anger. The crew obeyed, trembling, as the passengers sat frozen in their seats. Clara's mind worked silently, collecting fragments, accents, tones, commands, body language. She noticed how the youngest hijacker avoided eye contact with the leader, how he flinched every time someone screamed. He was the weak link. Clara decided to take a chance. When he passed by her row, she whispered softly, "You don't have to do this." He turned sharply, pointing the gun toward her, eyes wide. "Quiet," he hissed, but his voice cracked, betraying fear. Clara didn't flinch. "You're scared," she murmured. "I can see it. You're not like them." He hesitated, confusion flickering in his expression before storming off. It wasn't much, but a seed of doubt had been planted. The other hijackers were losing patience, arguing among themselves. Clara's pulse quickened, not from fear, but anticipation. The daylight from the windows illuminated dust particles floating through the cabin, almost peaceful despite the chaos. She knew something the others didn't. Panic breaks groups faster than bullets. The moment one of them doubted the mission, everything could collapse. She had just started the countdown. The plane descended for refueling at a remote airfield under strict military watch. Outside, daylight shimmered over the runway, while negotiators tried to stall the hijackers through radio communication. Inside, the tension was unbearable. One hijacker shouted at another, accusing him of losing focus. The young one, the same Clara had spoken to, was sweating, shaking. Clara leaned forward slightly, catching his eye again. "They'll turn on you," she whispered. "You know it." He froze. The leader screamed for silence, waving his weapon wildly. The passengers ducked, terrified. Then, the sound of an argument between the hijackers erupted near the cockpit. It was chaos again, but this time, it was the hijackers who were falling apart. Clara seized the moment. She signaled the attendant beside her with a nod. Timing mattered now. As one of the hijackers turned his back, she moved, quick and precise. Years of training took over. She grabbed the nearest object, a metal tray, and struck hard his wrist, sending his gun sliding across the aisle. The young hijacker hesitated, torn, then kicked it away from the leader. The cabin erupted. Passengers shouted, crew members rushed to help, and Clara tackled the second man with sheer precision. Within moments, the hijackers were overwhelmed. When the pilot finally stepped out, pale and trembling, he saw Clara standing calmly in the aisle. "Who are you?" he asked breathlessly. She replied softly, "Just someone who used to solve problems." When Flight 782 finally landed safely under escort, sunlight bathed the runway. News cameras flashed as authorities swarmed the plane, but the world didn't yet know what had truly happened inside. Passengers cried and embraced, overwhelmed by relief. The pilot gave a statement to officials, his voice filled with awe. "If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be standing here." But Clara was nowhere to be found. She slipped quietly down the staircase, disappearing into the crowd of responders, her jacket hood pulled low. Later, headlines across the globe told the story. "Unknown woman thwarts hijacking on Flight 782. Videos of terrified passengers describing her bravery went viral. Governments praised the mysterious hero, but no one could trace her. Her past remained sealed, her real identity classified. What few knew was that Clara had once been part of an elite crisis unit, a ghost from operations no one dared to mention. She had promised herself never to return to that life, but destiny had other plans. For her, saving those lives wasn't about glory, it was instinct. Some called her a guardian, others called her an angel, but Clara called it something simpler, doing what had to be done. Flight 782 became a legend, a story of fear, courage, and one woman's secret that changed everything.